All right. Good morning, anyone out there. You know what's the worst part about this whole live streaming thing is? While I'm still using StreamYard, there's a button you click and go live, and then it's like, "Are you ready to go live?" And every time I'm like, "No, of course not. I wouldn't be doing this if I were ready for it." Um, So that's how this day started. Wonderful, isn't it? It is Wednesday, the 13th of November, and I'm going to try to do the thing that I always say that I want to do, which is, of course, be productive and everything. So I guess I have like a couple of comments to go through, emails to get rid of during the first sprint, and then definitely writing during the second sprint. I also need to think about something. I did record a video on the siege of Burning Grass yesterday, and then I took a shower. And while taking the shower, I realized that there are things I should have maybe also said that I didn't say. So now I'm wondering whether I should just re-record the video later today and see if it turns out better. And if it turns out better, then upload that one. After all, I mean, I don't have to, I don't have a schedule for these kind of things. Hey, Liam, you could make it. I am very happy for that. And hello, Kat, as well. I assume you have university in an hour. At least you had last week. Yeah, yeah. I remember you had a class at 9 last week. And this week, you don't have to talk about politics when you go there, or at least I hope you don't have to. Yeah, so I'm going to try to get the administrative stuff done in the first part and maybe make some more notes for that Siege of Burning Grass video so I don't forget stuff when I re-record it later today. And then some actual writing in the second part. After all, I seem to have overcome that hump of what to do with the emotions bit by just like having people fight. Play fight, to be clear, like this is friends wrestling, and I figured that is something that teenage boys will do, especially when in that situation. So it makes a lot of sense in that regard, and I don't have to face up to the idea that I'm unable to write good dialogue yet. Which is kind of sad when you realize that because you don't know how to talk properly, you don't know how to write dialogue properly, which means you have to resort to written violence instead of physical violence. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah, so that's that. And I did read all of David Graeber's The Ultimate Hidden Truth of the World yesterday, and I did very much enjoy it. It's a good book. I mean, it's a collection of essays, interviews that were like later published and stuff like that, edited by his wife. Obviously posthumously edited by his wife, who is currently apparently digging through the entire estate of David Graeber, which kind of sucks. Um, but it's good that she's doing that work, and yeah, so we have that. There's obviously essays in there or articles in there that I mean, someone who has read Graeber before already knows. There's the original on the phenomenon of bullshit jobs in there that later got turned into like an entire book. There is no West, or that there never was a West, which was basically the foundations for what later became the Dawn of Everything is in there. There's a lot of stuff around Occupy, the Occupy movement, where he was, very active. Stuff on violence that I found really interesting. It's a very good sort of like introduction if you don't want to just focus on one Graeber thing, because it gives you a bit of everything, I guess, and then you can branch out from there. Oh, what kind of essay did you have to write, Liam? Out of interest. And yeah, I guess yeah, the Graeber thing was interesting. And the next thing that I'm going to read, and I'm very excited for this, is Palo Alto: A History of California, Capitalism, and the World, because I wanted to read this for like a year now, and I finally can use it to not start reading Elantris yet, which is a good thing right now. And yeah. And I'm still sort of figuring out whether to do something like Drizzt this year, and if so, whether to do the Drizzt books 14 to 26, which I don't think will work that well. And there is, of course, the idea of maybe just doing the Left Behind series instead, because you know that should be fun. Although I feel like, that problem, like, I don't know, maybe it's just me. It's like I have an idea of like what I want to do, or how the things that I do on this channel sort of are meant to appear, or what they are meant to do. So when I asked, like, hey, so what kind of books would you like to see instead of Drizzt this year? I got a lot of like very interesting suggestions where I'm like, that's not that's not what I thought Drizzt last year was. But like, I mean, sure, talking about say Franz Kafka novellas, or whatever you want to call his books, is an interesting thing. But that's not what I see Drizzt to be, right? Same with someone suggesting to read Cormac McCarthy novels. And I'm like, that's not that's not what I thought this was. Which then makes me wonder, like, hey, did the whole project come across as something very different than I envisioned it? Ah, interesting. I mean, I have read the Monsters and the Critics essay by Tolkien, but I have never read the response because, at the end of the day, I am not doing linguistics or philology. I don't know. Children's books are kind of difficult because I don't remember what it means to be a child, so I don't think I'll be good at doing that. I feel like Left Behind would probably work in that it is relatively short novels. It's technically sort of science fiction. I guess you can call it science fiction. After all, it's not realist fiction is the point. It does have like some very strong stances on things like politics, religion, and so forth that I most likely will disagree with a lot. And it was very, very popular with a specific subset of the population, at least in the US, in the same way that like Drizzt was all of these things, I guess. So it would kind of fit the bill. I suspect evangelical Christians are much more annoyed with me, or that remains to be seen. If evangelical Christians are more insulted if I read Left Behind and I'm unhappy with it than Drizzt Do'Urden fans are if I read Salvatore and I'm unhappy with it. And probably both pale in comparison to what people will say once those Brandon Sanderson videos come out. Geronimo Stilton. I've never heard of that. I would have to look it up. Oh, Animorphs. Now that's an interesting choice, Ori. And good morning. I mean, I could just go through like the Beatrix Potter books from like the late 19th century and see how those work. But I hope no one wants that. I mean, there's lots of kind of stuff. I mean, I thought about going with the Dragon Riders of Pern series by Anne McCaffrey, but then again, I don't think they will make me very angry. I think they're just. I mean, I've read like one or two. No, just like no 70s science fantasy, which is cool. Wow. Well, there's certainly a lot of Geronimo Stilton books on Audible. And luckily, they're all packed in like 3 or so in like one audiobook because, yeah, that's short. Hey, Kale, how you doing out down under? Yeah, I mean, Animorphs definitely is something there. Like that's something I could definitely do. I guess I'd have to look about those for like audio books, but I'm pretty sure they exist. I mean, that's the thing, Kat. Right? The Anne McCaffrey Dragon Rider, the Pern series is in fact like a classic that I also want to read more of because I only had the Harper's Hall trilogy, one of those. Dragon Singer, I think, is one of them. It's ages ago. So that would definitely be an interesting one to generally just read more Dragon Riders of Pern, and that's I feel that's sort of like the issue. I mean, Animorphs might work. The two ideas that like Joe coming up with the idea of reading Perry Roden is definitely another one that might be interesting because that's like one of those weird things where they are huge in Germany because they're written by a team of authors and they used to be sort of like pulp magazines in a way that you could get like a new Perry Roden novel every week, every month or whatever, and they were sold at like at the cash register at like supermarkets and everything, so at the checkout, so you can always buy another one of those terrible novels. And the publisher who did those did a lot of these sort of like monthly novel series for ages, some of them highly problematic, to put it mildly, because there's a lot of like war novels about lancers in either World War One or World War Two, which is not the kind of thing you want you want to sell to Germans in the 60s and 70s, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't. So there is interesting sort of stuff around it in the same way that doing the Karl May thing would be very interesting in that regard, because it was so hugely influential in Germany for so long that and I don't know how many people outside of Germany even know that stuff exists. Obviously, Janine from Janine's Shelves didn't know when she recommended it, but yeah. So it would fit that bill of me confronting something that I grew up with and having to come to terms with the fact that it kind of sucked, probably. The true spirit of Drismus. Is that the point where like the ghost of Drismus past in the shape of Zagnafane comes over, and the ghost of Drismus present, which is Drizzt? And I don't know if he ever gets a kid, come at the ghost of Drismus future, and then they tell me that it's all about uh, corkscrewing scimitars, which is definitely not something I want to do. Now that would be terrifying. So yeah, that's just stuff I've been thinking about. But I'll definitely try to re-record a video on the Siege of Burning Grass today, because it is a brilliant book, and I think I can do it more justice with a re-recording than with the one that I recorded yesterday. So we'll see how that goes. But since it is a quarter past, I will now start doing productive things, or at least pretending to. And I'll talk to you all in, I guess, 45 minutes, around 10, at 10 my time. And so yeah, let's do this. And I am back at least. How did you all do? I hope it was at least as successful as my not doing that much. But, you know. Hey, how you doing this wonderful morning at 9 a.m. in your probably fog-covered rainy island over there? And hello, Bardish Entertainment. So yeah, I did go through some emails and catch up on other messages and stuff like that. And it's, you know, my hope is always that if I manage to do all of that in the morning, I can do whatever else the rest of the day and don't have to think about it. Obviously, never fully works like that, because then you have like people that are incredibly insistent when they want to send you messages, and you're like, well, give me like 10 minutes to answer, and then you have like 50 messages and 2 calls, and all they wanted to know is whether you're gonna do something in like 3 weeks. And I'm like, well, you could have waited. Yeah, I don't know if I'm gonna have like a productive day. I have to do the weight adjustment thing at the gym today. So the gym that I go to is sort of like fairly modern, so the whole weights are adjusted automatically every, I don't know, 3 weeks or whatever. You have to make a strength check, which sounds super like Dungeons and Dragons, right? You may have to roll a d20, and then it adjusts the weights to whatever it thinks is good. So I have to do that today, which sounds like well, not that fun. Trust me, it's not fun. But beyond that, yes, I did, go through emails and stuff, and I am hopefully ready to continue writing the other thing now, and we'll see how that goes. As far as I can tell, I can do another sprint tomorrow. There should be enough in my weird time budget on the StreamYard thing, and then I'll try to, because of Friday I can't anyway, so I'll do the thing that I'll always say I wanted to do, which is use the weekend to maybe get OBS set up and let you know about streaming on Monday during the weekend. And ideally, I'll really, really, really get more parts of the Mormonism video recorded, because I want to get the stuff out of the way. It feels like I've been talking about this video for like months now, and every time I was like, yeah, I need some more time, and it makes me feel kind of useless in that regard, because I know other people would have been finished with this like months ago already. But on the one hand, I'm scared that I fuck it up. On the other hand, I'm probably taking too long to do anything. So it's, I don't know. Not putting pressure on myself is kind of difficult. But yeah, which is why I'm definitely going to just write something that has no deadline in the next sprint, and ignore all the other stuff that I should do. What else can I say? I was like, that's like one of those things that I was wondering, is like, obviously the Goodreads Choice Awards came out, like the first round of voting started yesterday or for the day before that, and now everyone on BookTube is doing their videos on the Goodreads Choice Awards and commenting on them and stuff like that. And I'm always like, is this something I should say anything about? Because I don't know how to say this. I think it's interesting to watch the Goodreads Awards from the outside and see what people that use Goodreads in a specific way, what these kind of people think, and what these kind of people read or enjoy, or at least feel strongly enough about to vote. But on the other hand, I feel like talking about it on BookTube gives them way more sort of like weight than the Goodreads Choice Awards deserve. Or like it gives them the wrong kind of weight, because winning the Goodreads Choice Awards is not exactly a sign of having written a good book. It's a sign of having an author that is well connected on social media and can get their fans off their asses and go over to Goodreads and click on a link twice, or like how many rounds that is. And that's a different metric. Excitement for the Mormons. There's that. See, that's an interesting question, though. Is anyone interested in me making a video about Mormonism when there is so much pro-Mormon and anti-Mormon content on YouTube already? That's sort of like the next question that I'm wondering. I mean, technically, that most all awards where people vote for are popularity contests. The Hugo is a popularity contest. It's just a popularity contest for a very, very specific small subset of the fantasy and science fiction community, that being the people willing to spend at least the 30, 40, whatever bucks you have to spend as a supporting member for the next Worldcon to vote. And that's a very specific group of people, and you can expect those people have read the books they are voting for. Whereas with Goodreads doesn't check whether you have read those books or not. I mean, it shows you that you have read some of the books that are on that ballot, I guess. But beyond that, it doesn't check anything, which means if your favorite author tells you on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, whatever, tells you to vote for their book because they have a book in the Goodreads Choice Awards, and you have, you have a Goodreads account, you can just like vote for that. That's a different kind of popularity contest, I think. And it's interesting to see the difference between, say, the Hugos, and obviously Hugos are about the books released last year, so you have to kind of compare last year's Goodreads Awards with this year's Hugos in that sense. It's interesting to see the difference, because it kind of shows you what kind of differences there are in the larger sort of like genre fiction reading populace, I guess. But when you have that specific form of Goodreads Choice Awards, and then people on BookTube talk about the quality of the books that are nominated, and usually are complaining on how shit those books are, which is usually what the videos, at least the videos that show up in my recommendations, kind of say. You're giving the awards too much credibility, too much weight, because that's not what they are. They are not about the quality of books. They have like an audiobook category now. And you think people actually vote in the audiobook category for the quality of the book, or for the quality of the recording, or for what? It's never made clear. It's it's basically a marketing tool for Amazon, which, fine, just beware of what it is. So yeah, I'm wondering if I should maybe make a video on that whole subject of awards and stuff at some point. Because after all, if I make angry videos about generic BookTube adjacent topics, like what you might call almost drama content or whatever, that does much better than when I talk about books usually. Although, to be fair, the video on Wild Faith did much better than I thought. But then again, maybe putting out a video on on the Christian right 2 days after the US election was good timing in that regard. We'll see how the video on the Siege of Burning Grass will do, because I suspect that's once again going to be like super niche, the same way that all these Ian McDonald videos are super niche. Like no one wants to watch them. So I was thinking about maybe doing that awards thing, because it would also be easy content in that I can just like sit down and ramble for 20 minutes, upload it, and no further questions asked, and that's always helpful while I'm working on the bigger video that does take preparation. I know it's all kind of weird, not always easy to figure out how to do these things, because no one teaches you how to I mean, obviously, there's a lot of like weird tutorials out there on like how to be a better YouTuber, how to do these things. The interesting part there is that so much of doing stuff on the internet is about creating an image of authenticity in a lot of ways, and that's something you have to figure out for yourself. I can't. No one can tell me what I need to do to be authentic on screen. That's something I have to figure out for myself. Um, so a lot of that is something where it's hard to learn stuff. I mean, yes, you can obviously figure out how to do all these wonderful stuff like search engine optimization using different aspects of the YouTube system, like these end cards and title cards and stuff like that. And I should definitely figure out how to do that. James Ellroy loves La Vie Tidar. That's interesting. Did he say something about that? On the other hand, I am not necessarily surprised. I mean, I don't know why you would be surprised that James Ellroy loves Tidar, because I mean, Tidar has written a lot of stuff that is at least hard-boiled and crime fiction adjacent, often in different genres. But I can see how that is something that Ellroy would be interested in. Although I'm more surprised that he said something about it. But good for La Vie. I mean, I'm happy that he gets like a shout out from a much bigger author. It's certainly helpful. Oh, The Violent Century, that would be. That is a really good one. I haven't read it in years and years and years because it's a relatively old one. But yeah, it's a really good novel about superheroes during World War II, and British superheroes. So it has a very British atmosphere. It's all very depressed and everything's foggy and washed out and yeah, mixing sort of like the language of the hard-boiled detective story of the noir, I guess, with the superhero plot. And I think so. I guess if you like stuff like Watchmen, in obviously a very different kind of comic at the end of the day, but like if you like something like Watchmen or the approach to like this very gritty approach to parts of like the superhero kind of thing, then yeah, Violent Century is a good book to read. By Force Alone is a Arthurian retelling, but it does have parts that are very clearly inspired by crime fiction. A lot of it, in fact, is inspired by crime fiction. But at its core, it covers most of the stuff that is covered in Le Morte d'Arthur by what's his name? Mallory, Thomas Mallory. It does cover most of that. But it uses the language of crime fiction, of hard-boiled, and some other aspects, some other language as well. There's a part in there that is very much a pastiche or homage to Stalker, or in this case, obviously the book being Roadside Picnic. And there's other parts that are very clearly paying homage to some other forms of fantasy and other forms of fiction. So, but it is Arthurian fiction. So I don't know if you'd enjoy that, Britain, but I can see, because you are a comic book guy and stuff like that, I can see you probably enjoying the Violent Century. It's if superheroes during World War II sounds like something you'd be interested in. Hey, Chris. Good morning. Oh yeah, it's definitely sort of like very much ignoring genre boundaries in all kinds of ways. That's for sure. I mean, I do really enjoy it, but it definitely helps if you have read some Arthurian books before, because then you get like all the ways he twists ideas. So interesting. All right. I also should really start reading Elantris, but I feel more like reading Palo Alto or listening to Palo Alto during at the gym today. Maybe it's because I really, really, really enjoyed the Siege of Burning Grass so much that I'm wary of starting a fantasy book now that I'm sure will absolutely not live up to that standard. And that's not even just me bashing Brandon Sanderson. It's his debut novel, and B, I don't expect Brandon Sanderson to have that level of sort of like involvement, thematic depth when it comes to ideas like pacifism and violence and all of these things that Primi Mohamed does in fact cover in Siege of Burning Grass. So yeah, I don't know. Everyone should go and read Siege of Burning Grass. It is incredibly powerful. It's really, really good. I think the Hybrid Helix stuff is much more positive and much more colorful, much more closer to like superhero comics the way we mostly see them these days. I don't know if you've read, is it called the Milkway Triptych? Something like that, by Ian Tregillis. That's also superheroes during World War II, superheroes fighting Nazis. I have not read that one, but so there is a genre of superhero novels in World War II. I mean, if you read The Violent Century, I'm going to reread it and we can have a conversation about it, because I'd be interested on your takes on it, and I'd be interested in what I think about it now that it's been like, I don't know, 10 years since I read it, probably. I mean, the thing about most Lavie Tidhar novels is that they are relatively short, so it's not like the hugest of commitments usually. With Tidhar, I would start wherever sounds interesting to you. I mean, that's probably the best approach with Tidhar, because he does range so widely all over different genres. There's like his steampunk novels, The Bookman, that I haven't read. There is obviously Osama, which is weird. It's really powerful, but it's a weird, melancholy book about grief, roughly, I would argue. Then there is The Violent Century, which is, well, superheroes fighting Nazis. Then there is A Man Lies Dreaming, which is about Adolf Hitler being a private detective in 1939, I think, London. There is historical novels. There is science fiction stuff. It's all over the place. There is sword and sorcery with also handguns and frog sex. Like as I said, like, and then there's these historical novels that both the specific ones focused on the history of Israel and Palestine, Maror and Adama. And then there is this newest one, which is sort of like a collection of like shorter novels that are kind of linked, short, that is 6 Lives. Yeah, it's hard to recommend a starting point, because it's so much different stuff. So I said, like, the two things where I would go, like, reading by force alone without having knowledge of Arthurian literature can be rough. The same goes for the sort of follow-up, that being Hood, the Hood in this case, the Hood being obviously about Robin Hood. Once again, knowing some Robin Hood facts will, just make it easier to read those kind of books. But beyond that, just pick whatever you can get and whatever sounds interesting. Or obviously watch his wonderful balloon short film, animated short film. It Happened in Loontown, which is about hot air balloons and drug smuggling and stuff. It's it's funny. Or of course, his even more absurd, together with a friend, animated short animated series about toasters on Mars. So yeah, there's way too much of this stuff. But that's like the other things. Like, do you guys still have like books that are coming out before the end of the year that you're excited about and don't say Wind and Truth? Because yesterday the final Ostenard book came out, so that one's off my list now. Yeah, there's of course that you know, the end of Robin Hood in that regard is, but it's an interesting ending, especially since there are, you know, different versions of Robin Hood all over history that vary even more widely than I guess versions of Arthur you can find, because of Robin Hood being much more of like a folk kind of tradition, or different folk traditions that kind of get melded into something much later. So you have like all these different versions of what Robin Hood does, what Robin Hood doesn't, and in a lot of ways. There's a nice The Great One was great. I did enjoy it. The one that I'm still looking forward to is Ludluda by Jeff Noon and Steve Beard. I always confuse the names there. It's the second part to Gog Magog, which came out in January or February. So it's going to be like 2 books, I guess, not a trilogy. So I'm hoping it will end there. Yeah, I worked through Memory Sorrowthorn and The Heart of What Was Lost last year, because I expected Navigator's Children to come out last year, and then it got pushed back an entire year, so I took a break. I still have to read the Last King of Ostenard series, and of course is it called Brothers of the Wind, the prequel one, I guess. And the Gog Magog Ludluda thing is something that I feel Britain you might enjoy, because it does certainly have some China Miéville vibes in there. It is China Miéville meets Jeff Vandermeer in a very, very specific book about Britain. So definitely something I feel you might be enjoying, or at least get weirded out by, because holy shit, it is weird. So it does have a lot of like, also like weird kind of concepts and characters and creatures that give me very clear like Baslag vibes in a way. Yeah, I'm gonna reread Gog Magog when Ludluda comes out, so I can have both in like one go, because I don't necessarily remember all the sort of details, and the way I read the book, I was like, these details will matter, so I should probably remember them before I read the second book. And I have pre-ordered Ludluda, so that is definitely going to happen. I think it may be coming out next week. I'm really bad at remembering these kind of things. Let's find out. Oh no, they pushed it back to March next year. Now that annoys me. Or no, it didn't. No. Oh God. Oh no. I got confused. It's the 3rd of December. I got confused by Audible switching the date thing from like American date format to German European date format, depending on which side you open. I just opened the wrong one and got the wrong date. Instead, it's not 12th of March. It is in fact 3rd of December. So we're good. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of like really cool sort of very cool metaphoric work going on there that I really appreciate. And I think, and that's something I said in my video on the Great When. I think in a way, uh, both books are sort of tackling the same kind of sort of topics in different approaches, but both Alan Moore and in this case Noon and Beard are very clearly looking at why is Britain so fucked up right now, and both going back to sort of like the end of like World War II and what happened after World War II with Britain in a lot of ways, which and collapse of empire obviously, and they have obviously chosen very different approaches, and one is much more fantastic and surreal than the other, but I think it kind of goes down the same direction. And I'm still looking forward to reading the Sunken Land Will Rise Again by M. John Harrison, which I think also kind of goes down that same sort of like tries to answer the same questions. I'm still waiting for the third one to come out, so I'm finally going to read the whole like Dark Star trilogy. But I hope maybe next year. Oh, that would be good, because I expect it to be brilliant. I haven't even looked at like what is coming out next year beyond, of course, No Life Forsaken, which I'll definitely read, and there is a new Joe Abercrombie book coming, but beyond that, I have no idea. Oh yeah, right, the Nnedi Okorafor one coming out in January. That one I'm very much looking forward to. All right, everybody, it is half past. We talked longer than I thought we would. So I'm gonna do 45 minutes of sprints, and I'll be back around 10:15, and then I'll be rambling a bit, and then I'll be leaving for the gym. So good luck with being productive, reading, writing, breakfasting. And yeah, I'll talk to you very soon. All right, and we are back for the end for today. I did in fact write something, and not as much as I wanted to, but since there is no deadline, I can just see whatever I can see, and I have at least progressed somewhat beyond that now. So I guess we call it progress. I mean, maybe I'm like the only person, but I'm always sort of like setting sort of deadlines in my head and then always fail at those deadlines, which is not a good way of doing this. But I thought like maybe I'll finish. My vague idea was to maybe finish the first chapter of what this will be by the end of the week. Now I'm not so sure if I can manage that. Hey, Breaking Spines. But it takes for however long it'll take, and I'd rather do it at least a little bit every day and see, maybe get used to just like putting down words at this point. Yeah, so that's that part. At least at least I did something and don't feel too bad about it now. So I guess my plan now will be to go to the gym, do the whole strength check thing. Hopefully I'll roll a high number, who knows, and get some reading done in the Palo Alto book. It's really something that I'm interested in general, because the way that the very specific town of Palo Alto sort of like structured the minds and culture of the people that then became so important during the last 40, 50, 60 years or whatever, when it comes to like developing digital technology and the internet and impacting all of that. Yeah, I think it's something that it's helpful to sort of see or understand how we got where we are now, with especially stuff like social media and so forth. So, and it does start with a Karl Marx quote. So I have not fully figured out the dialogue problems. I feel like the problem with dialogue is that you just need to write a lot and until it sort of feels right. I don't think there's a way around that, I guess. Yeah, I can see that, Ida. I guess the difference is that you have in fact already finished books. You have even published books, and I have not. So I can't fully say like I'm gonna finish whatever in X amount of months, because I have no idea what I'm doing right now. So this is very, very open-ended. I'll just write until I either give up or feel that it is actually done. One of those are those are the two options that I have, and we'll see which one it is, which one I hit first. But we'll see. And yeah, and after I finish the Palo Alto book, I really have no excuse but to read Elantris, and hopefully by then I'm far enough into the Mormonism video that my reading of Elantris does not necessarily impact the way I talk about Mormonism, because that's kind of the danger I want to avoid, is to sort of retrofit my arguments about Mormonism to then work well for my claims about Brandon Sanderson's writing, and that would be, I guess, intellectual dishonesty. Yeah, maybe that might work, Ida. I mean, also, I mean, as I said, I haven't even thought about much about the whole idea of like alpha readers or whatever. My vague idea was to, I guess my idea was to write at least like a first chapter to see, have that one done, and maybe go once over it to remove most of the typos and stuff and the rough inconsistencies, and then hand it off to like one or two people I trust, and they're like, hey, does this suck a lot? And if they go no, then I'll continue, and otherwise I'll do something else. Yeah, I mean, I don't expect Elantris to be like the next candidate for like a Pulitzer or anything of the sorts. I have read the first Mistborn trilogy before, but my goal was to go through this in roughly publication order, sort of more or less, although like not in full publication order, but like each series sort of by publication. Sort of, maybe. So starting with Elantris as like the first published novel felt like a good idea, and you know, I'm fine with that. And then again, I mean, I'm reading this to find stuff out and not necessarily to have a very good time or enjoyment in it. Or at least my enjoyment will come from from you know, learning stuff, and not so much from just the plot and the prose or whatever. So I guess I can find some joy in it somewhere. Hopefully. Well, you have like 3 weeks, I guess. I'm gonna continue just like a pace, and I mean, Elantris is that's not too long for a Brandon Sanderson novel, I guess. So I guess I hope I can get through it in like maybe 1 weekend or something, if I have nothing more to do. So that would be helpful, I guess. So yeah, I'm gonna pack my stuff so I can catch my bus to the gym, and I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully. If I can still squeeze one more stream out of this StreamYard thing before the weekend. And yeah. If not, I'll definitely let you know. And I should also put up the, what's it called? A poll for which kind of books to read over Christmas. We'll see. And ideally, a video about the Siege of Burning Grass will be out later today, if nothing bad happens. So as always, thanks for hanging out in the morning with me. I do really appreciate that. And yeah, I'll see you later or tomorrow.